everyone, it's Leanne with Lovely Scrappin', and I'm back with part 2 of 2 with my mixed media canvas collage start to finish videos. So as you can see, all I'm doing here is continuing to glue on my elements on the canvas, and I'm using E6000 right now. I use that for a lot of the heavy metals and the larger non-porous objects, plastic objects and whatnot. And then I've just used hot glue there for flowers, and now I'm using glossy accents for small buttons. So I really use a mixture of the different types of adhesives depending on what I think will hold. Here I'm using both glossy accent and hot glue. I use a little bit of hot glue on there just to hold it down and secure it in place while the glossy accent hardens. Here I just took a recollection vine, and I'm just sort of placing it on there until I figure out exactly what I want to do with it. Gluing down a key, and I do kind of skip a bunch of pieces because it would just the gluing process and putting on the elements takes a long time, and I don't want to bore you guys with all of the entire process of me gluing every single element down, so I do skip some parts. But if you have any questions on how I've done something, just let me know. I don't mind answering. And now I'm just going to adhere these little daisies I've cut in half just with some hot glue, and add some more elements with some glossy accents underneath. And a lot of the times, if I've put something down, I just hurry up and glue it so I can't change my mind later. I have changed my mind at some times where I just felt like I needed to change something around, but if you think it looks good the first time, just put it down and just continue building your collage around it with little elements filling in all the little holes and spaces with different textures and stuff. So if I have a lot of circles in one area, I tried, with buttons or knobs or something, I tried to put in some different shapes and stuff to change it up a little bit. And I'm using the glossy accent on the chain just to secure it down because I don't want it to be moving around. I just want it to be stationary. And these are just some little sprays that I just curled the ends in and just kind of put it in place. It kind of fit perfectly in there. So just using hot glue to adhere that down. And then glossy accents for this piece I'll put there. There's a lot of texture up there, so it's hard for it to lay flat. But if you put a lot of glossy accents, it'll catch in some of the high points of the canvas and adhere it down nicely. And just put a washer there. And I'm just kind of gathering a few flowers and twisting them together, which I'll use a little bit later, higher up in the project. And here I'm using E6000 around the edge of the hinge, and then some hot glue in the center, and then just pressing it down. So the hot glue will hold it in place while the E6000 hardens. I'm just trimming up a zipper pull right now, just because I wanted it to be thinner, and then I'm just melting the edges to make it a nice clean edge. And I just use hot glue to put that one down. And here I previously glossy accented these four dice together, and then I'm just using E6000 to put the bundle of four down onto the canvas. And that fun wire thing is actually part of a smoke detector that we didn't end up using for our house. So I grabbed it and asked my husband if I could use it, and he's like, "Go ahead." So just I adhered it down with actually all three E6000, glossy accent, and hot glue. And now I'm just using the glossy accents to sort of add the little ends into different random pieces. And I just use my tweezers to hold it in place, and also just a heavy object to hold it in place till it dries. And I'm just adding some smaller elements to different parts of the canvas with some glossy accent. And here I'm just putting glossy accents in the center of the flower, which is a mini bottle cap, and I just put beads in there. So I cut that vine, and I cut it in half, and so I put the lower piece down here where you see me gluing it now, and then I've put the other half up at the top of the canvas, looking almost like a branch coming off of the tree. That's actually a piece of a old jewelry box, that brass thing I'm gluing on right now. It's actually plastic but painted brass. And it's just it has a lot of height to it, so I thought it'd be fun to add to it. And that's just a metal clip magnet thing I took from my fridge because the magnet wasn't very strong, and whatever I clipped to it just kept falling down, so I just said, I'll use it on my project. And lots of different types of flowers, daisy flowers, and cherry blossoms and stuff from different collections and different brands. This is a Michael's key that I'm using E6000 and a little bit of glossy accents on some parts. And that owl, I had to incorporate the owl. My daughter absolutely loves owls ever since she saw a gray owl on one of our walks in the forest. And so I had to incorporate that in the tree because I knew she would just love it. And it just reminds me of her whenever I see owls. And I've got a graphic 45, one of those metal tags, and then a belt, kind of a loop thing, and then a bead landing key on top. I just layered. Again, it's so much fun just layering different pieces together to give it a different look and different texture. Just using some hot glue for different pieces of the vine to hold it down. And that's just a funky shaped hinge I really liked. It's kind of like a closure for a box sort of a thing. And this, I've turned this kind of a button bead thing upside down because I liked the top part of it, or I guess it would be the bottom. And here's the nest that I just cut out from just a dollar store candle spray type of thing, and I just put it in there. I thought it'd be fun to put a nest in the tree, and then used hot glue for that. And then I'm going to, after putting a few more elements around it, I'll use glossy accents and put some beads in the center of it to make it look like some eggs. And there's the beads I'm adding to it. And this is a golf tee because my husband loves playing golf, so I wanted to incorporate that in there. It was in the junk drawer, so I just grabbed a bunch of stuff from the junk drawer. I'm like, oh, that's junk. I'll use it on here. And that's another little drawer pull from a jewelry box I had. Just some random gears. I love cutting some of the gears in half and using them in different pieces and different parts. And that is like a gold sort of a brooch thing I found at a garage sale a long time ago. I thought it'd be fun. It's all metal, gold type of thing. Lots of fun text to it with the leaves and the roses, so I wanted to incorporate that in there. And if you guys can notice, a lot of the times when I'm laying things down, it's either vertical or horizontal. In terms of when its length, I either lay it vertical or horizontal. I don't really lay it on an angle, 45-degree angle or anything like that. I just like to have it either vertical or horizontal. I just like the way it looks. That's a vintage pen nib that I found in a antique store. I wanted to incorporate that. Super fun. Found that when we were shopping at my in-laws' local town. We were visiting my in-laws. So here's just a quick look of all of the elements that I put on the canvas before I start painting it with the gesso. But before I do that, I did kind of start a little bit on the corner there. You can see a little bit of gesso on the very bottom corner. But anyway, I wanted to add some more texture to the sides just because you don't want to forget about the sides of your canvas when you've got quite a thick side like that. So I wanted to add lots of texture to it. So I'm just using the Liquitex, the texture paste. It's, I think, the medium thickness. And so I'm just applying it down with my palette knife, adding lots of fun textures to it. And then on the tree trunk area as well, I'm adding it after I've done all four sides of the canvas. And up here, I'm also doing the tree branches that are still exposed that haven't been covered up, and I'm just adding a little bit more texture to it because they aren't quite as high as I wanted them. Probably could have put more tissue paper when I was doing that earlier, but this will work just as fine as well. And also in the spots where there is no texture, I wanted to add a little bit of the texture paste too to give it just a little bit of a rougher feel to it. And actually when I painted it, the color, the way that it took on the color with the different textures there, it looked really cool. So I was happy with the way that turned out. I'm just sort of applying it and wherever I think there should be more texture. A little off screen there, sorry you guys. So now I'm taking my gesso and I'm going to start the process of just covering everything up with gesso. And sometimes in some pieces you might need to do a few layers of it just to thicken it up a little bit. Right now in these areas it's actually a second layer because I've laid down a little bit earlier. And using an older brush like what I'm using now, that's a little bit smaller to really get into the little nooks and crannies. You don't have to worry about too much in terms of getting every single little crack, because when you start spraying, all of the spray and the color from the spray seeps into all those cracks anyways, and so most of it will get covered in the end anyway. And this is a bit time consuming as well, you guys, so lots of patience with this, but it's kind of relaxing at the same time. Therapeutic, I like to say. So that's what the canvas looks like when it's covered with a layer of the gesso. And then I start with the painting. So in my mind I had a vision of doing a darker border around the entire canvas of like a dark brown. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm going around with brown acrylic paint and just kind of going around the complete edges and bringing it up into the canvas a little bit, like just framing it along the border. And again, I'm not getting too worried about going into all of the little cracks because a lot of the sprays I'm going to go over top of it will go into those cracks as well. But don't want to leave too big of gaps in there because it'll show just the white underneath. So now I'm just covering up my photo with baby wipe just because I am using some darker colors around the border now. I think this is the Cadbury Milk Chocolate from Lindy's. It's a starburst spray. So I wanted to start the blending process and go over top of the brown. I didn't think the brown was as dark as I wanted it, so that's why I'm going over with the Cadbury Milk Chocolate. And I'm just sort of going into the white a little bit too to kind of start the blending process. Just going around the entire canvas and doing the sides as well, making sure I get the sides. And this gives a nice shimmer to it too. I really love this spray. And you guys, I'm going to have a list of all of the spray on my blog. So I'll have a link to my blog below so you guys can just go to my blog and it'll have a list of all the products. So this is the that Toto's Tornadoes Black, I think it's called. And I wanted to go black on here to darken the brown to more of like an espresso brown. So that's why I'm kind of incorporating the black. This is the cattail copper brown that I'm kind of going in. It's a lighter, so I'm sort of going from dark to light. So I'm going to be using the Bayou Boogie Gold, I think it's called. And so that's what I'm doing here, just spraying it fairly thick in to the inner, all towards the inner part. And here I'm using the Tainted Love Teal, I think it's called. And I really love this color, and just sort of going in random spots. My vision does change too during this painting process, you guys, and you'll see near the end. And here's another blue. This is a flat Fabio, so it has no shimmer. It's one of the denim ones. And this is the turquoise one, and I think it's the T-bird turquoise. I wanted to add a bit more of a green tone to it. And then I'm using the Grab a Guy Gold, I think is what this one is. It ends up being quite yellow, but right now I'm just taking my paintbrush and dipping it into the bottle of the Grab a Guy Gold, and it's just I'm just drawing in some of the yellow gold into the photo to kind of blend the photo in a little bit. And I was just using my finger there to kind of blend it and smear it a little bit more, to kind of get the edges nice and soft. I'm using paper towel now because I'm going to go around with more gold around the picture. And it ends up being quite yellow, which is kind of, I like the yellow tone because of course fall has a lot of yellow tones in the leaves. So anyway, I wanted to do a little bit more. I wanted to bring more of the blue into it, so I just sprayed some more blue in there. And then I will add some gesso and all different types of colors later on. Now I'm just going back over with the Cadbury milk chocolate to bring in some more brown and blend the edges a bit more. And as I was looking at this, I wasn't really feeling the border as much anymore. So that's when I kind of stream away from my first vision and I go around with more blues and the golds in different spots. So here I'm just putting more blue. I think this is the Tiffany blue one I'm using. And here's where I've decided to kind of go in all different areas and sort of overlap the border as well. So the brown will still be there, but for the most part, there's going to be a lot of gold and blue spots all over the place kind of thing. So. And what I'm doing is I'm spraying and heat setting it right away so the colors don't bleed too much into the color below, because it will change the color. So it will still change a little bit, but by heat setting it right away, it can help preserve the natural color of the spray that you just laid down. And I actually used a sepia. It's a flat Fabio here because I didn't want any more shimmer in that area, but I wanted to bring in more of a brown. And now I'm going to be taking the gesso and I'm going to go around my photo to highlight it and almost make it like it's being illuminated with light. And it, the yellow, the gold, the Grab a Guy Gold underneath really soaks into the gesso and it turns it yellow still. So you do have to do a few layers to really lighten it up to more of a white yellow. So again, you'll get to learn what's happening with the products you're using as you're working with it, and something might happen that you don't like, and you'll just have to kind of sometimes just go over different layers. And here I'm highlighting certain parts of the elements just to bring out the texture of them. Still highlighting some different areas, and as I was doing this I ended up not liking some of the highlights I was doing, so then I did more spraying, and I often would put my canvas down and walk about 20 feet away from it and look at it, because that's when you can really get a good idea of the colors and what's happening. So I've done that many times and gone back and done many layers until I liked what I was doing. Sorry you guys, there's a lot of light coming through the window right now. I'm just in my dining room with the window open beside me, so just trying to get the best light possible, but it's kind of hard. Here I'm doing more highlighting with the gesso. And previous to that, you saw me doing some more spraying of blue. Pretty much this entire process is, doing your layering and your painting until you get the look that you're going for and that you like in the end. So, I mean, I took several pictures, and you're going to see at the very end of the process of me going from putting down the elements, like the background, the elements, and then the different stages of the painting, and you'll see how the image changed as I did different spraying and layering. So those are the photos at the very end of this video. And then if you go to my blog, you'll see more photos of the completed canvas. And I also have a video, not the start to finish, but it's just me explaining the kind of process a little bit of this canvas, and I'll link that video below as well. So here I've added more of the Grab-A-Guy Gold in different spots to add a bit of that yellow to different elements. And as you can see, the top left corner is quite white, and I didn't end up liking that, so that's when I kind of go over with more sprays. I think my my heat tool will die here soon, and you're going to see a lot of spraying and not drying. It's because my heat tool dried, and then I thought, oh, I'll get my blow dryer. So eventually you'll see me using my blow dryer. And I used that Jack Frost spray for the white, you guys. It works so well, and I didn't know if it would or not, so I pulled it out and tried it, and I love the way it looks. So it really helped with the white around my picture. And now I'm just going in random areas with my blue and my Grab-A-Guy Gold. Here's more of the Jack Frost spray that I'm using. I think that was the name of it, Jack Frost. Again, the list of the products will be linked below, you guys. And in some areas when you spray, sometimes the spray will pool a little bit, so I just dab it with my paper towel, which is kind of what you see me doing every now and then in different areas. I dab it to absorb some of the excess. And here I just went over with a little bit more gesso in some of the parts I wanted to highlight a little bit more. I'm just going over some random pieces in the collage and highlighting them with gesso again. And here's my blow dryer, you guys. And so there is pretty much the finished project. I was quite happy with it. I just took my phone off of the holder and I'm kind of showing you the overview, so it's a bit shaky. Sorry, you guys. So here are the pictures that I've taken of the process. I hope you like it. Thank you so much for hanging in there, you guys. I know it was a long process, but I hope you enjoy it. Take care. Bye now.